8 months. That is how long Kaitlin went without playing a single competitive basketball game. No WNBA floor, no overseas league, no unrivaled showcase. Just silence, rehab, and a grind that nobody on the outside could fully see. And when she finally stepped back onto the court this week with Team USA, the question on everyone's mind was brutally simple. Is she still that player? The answer came fast, probably faster than anyone expected. But her return is only one piece of a much bigger puzzle. Because behind the headlines and the hype, there was a far more urgent challenge playing out quietly in a Miami gym. Team USA had just 2 days, 48 hours to take a group of elite players from different WNBA teams, different systems, and completely different playing habits, and somehow forge them into something that resembles a connected basketball team before boarding a flight to Puerto Rico for games that actually count. 2 days is not a lot of time when you are asking superstars to learn each other's rhythm from scratch. And what unfolded during those sessions, and then on the court in San Juan, might have just changed the entire conversation around this team. But that was only the beginning. Here is the thing most people overlook when they see a roster loaded with names like Caitlin Clark, Paige Bueckers, Angel Reese, Kelsey Plum, and Chelsea Gray. Talent does not automatically equal teamwork. These players come from completely different corners of the WNBA. Different coaches, different schemes, different habits built over entire seasons. Even something as basic as knowing where a teammate wants the ball on a pick and roll takes reps to figure out when to cut, when to space, when to trust that someone behind you is going to rotate on time. That kind of synergy usually takes weeks to develop. Team USA had roughly 4. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video. 48 hours to make it work. And here is the part that makes the context even more interesting. The United States had already qualified for the 2026 World Cup by winning the 2025 FIBA AmeriCup. So this qualifying tournament in Puerto Rico was never about survival. It was about something deeper. Reps, evaluation, building the kind of invisible trust that separates a collection of stars from a team that actually controls games when possessions get messy and uncomfortable. Head coach Kara Lawson, alongside assistants Natalie Nikazi, Nate Tibbetts, Stephanie White, Jose Fernandez, and Tia Jackson, understood exactly what was at stake. Every single drill during those Miami sessions was designed to compress weeks of development into hours, tighten offensive sets, sharpen defensive rotations, speed up communication on both ends. Because once the tournament started, there would be zero margin for figuring things out on the fly. The coaching staff treated Miami like a pressure cooker, not a showcase, not a photo opportunity, a laboratory where chemistry either starts forming or it does not. And the clock was already ticking. The flight to San Juan was booked. The opener against Senegal was locked in from March 11th. Every minute on the practice floor carried weight because there simply were not enough minutes to waste any. That urgency changed the feel of the entire camp. Players were not just running through sets. They were absorbing tendencies, learning timing, and figuring out who talks, who leads, and who responds when the action breaks down. And buried inside all of that team building, one player's presence created a completely different level of attention. What she had been through to get here made everything feel heavier. To understand why Caitlin Clark's return carried so much weight this week, you have to rewind and sit inside what she actually went through. Her sophomore WNBA season was supposed to be the leap, the confirmation. Instead, it became a nightmare that tested her in ways basketball never had before. It started with a right groin strain against the Connecticut Sun in July 2025. An injury that seemed manageable at first, something you tape up, rest for a few days, and push through. But during the recovery process, a bone bruise developed in her left ankle, and suddenly, the timeline was not days anymore. It was weeks, then months. Clark appeared in just 13 games all season, and what made it even more brutal was the pattern. She played the first 4 games before missing the next 5, came back for 5 games in June before being sidelined another 4, returned again for 4 games in July before ultimately shutting it down for good. That yo-yo cycle of availability was almost worse than a clean, defined absence. Clark herself admitted as much. She said constantly trying to come back and then getting hurt in another way messed with her mentally more than a straight shutdown ever could. Every time she felt ready, her body pulled the rug out from underneath her. When the fever finally shut her down for the remainder of the season, Clark made a decision that raised eyebrows. She did not go overseas to play during the off-season. She did not join Unrivaled, the league co-founded by Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, where many WNBA stars were competing. Instead, she stayed in Indianapolis, training with the Fever's medical staff, rebuilding her body in private. No cameras, no highlights, no paycheck from a winter league. Just the quiet, deliberate work of putting herself back together one day at a time. It was a choice that showed maturity beyond her years. While other stars were collecting checks and staying in the public eye, Clark bet on herself in a different way. She bet that the long-term investment in her health would pay off more than short-term reps in a different format, and the patience it required cannot be overstated. 8 months away from the game you have played your entire life is not just physically challenging, it is isolating. But what drove Clark through all of it was something that happened even before the injury started. Something that cut deeper than any groin strain or bone bruise ever could. Before the injuries, before the rehab, before the silence, there was Paris. And what happened during the summer of 2024 arguably reshaped the entire trajectory of Kaitlinclark's career and her relationship with Team USA. When the roster for the Paris Olympics was announced, Clark's name was nowhere on it. USA Basketball cited experience as the primary reason. The selection committee did not believe Clark had enough high-level senior national team reps to justify a spot on the plane. Every single player chosen had prior Olympic or senior international experience, something Clark could not have accumulated because she was still at the University of Iowa, leading her team to the NCAA Final Four when the Olympic training camp took place in March 2024. She literally could not attend. And yet, that absence was used against her. The reaction was immediate and volcanic. Social media dubbed it the Clark snub. Fans were furious. Pundits debated it for weeks. Some argued she earned her place through sheer production and the seismic cultural impact she was having on the sport. Others pointed to the committee's precedent of valuing international experience above all else. Chelsea Gray, who had not played in the WNBA for nearly a year due to a foot injury, attended that training camp. Clark could not. The optics were impossible to ignore. And then it got even more interesting. Reports surfaced that Clark had been offered a spot on the USA 3x3 team for Paris. She turned it down flat. It was 5-on-5 or nothing. When asked about it later, Clark did not dodge the question. She said she did not want to be there just because she could bring attention. She loved that for women's basketball. But she wanted to be selected because people genuinely thought she was good enough, not dragged around as a marketing piece for people to cheer about. That response carried diplomacy on the surface and razor-sharp intent underneath. And when she later reflected on the entire episode with Time magazine, she called it a blessing in disguise, something that woke a monster, something that would motivate her for the rest of her career. She pointed directly to the 2028 LA Olympics as the ultimate goal. So, when Clark finally pulled on a Team USA jersey this week for her first senior competition, it was not just a comeback from injury. It was the closing of a chapter that began with rejection and the opening of one aimed squarely at Los Angeles. But she was not walking into this alone. The roster assembled for this qualifying tournament told a story all by itself. On one side, you had Olympic gold medalists, Kahleah Copper, Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, Jackie Young, players who have been through the fire of international competition and know exactly what it demands. On the other side, you had first-time senior national team members, Clark, Bueckers, Reese, Kiki Iriafen, players who had dominated at the college and WNBA level but had never worn the red, white, and blue in a setting like this. That blend of experience and fresh energy was deliberate, and it created a dynamic that went beyond basketball strategy. There were also some last-minute complications. Fever forward Aaliyah Boston and Washington Mystics guard Sonia Citron were originally slated to join the roster, but injuries suffered during the 2026 Unrivaled season forced both to withdraw. Monique Billings and Ray Burrell stepped in as replacements. Late roster changes like that can disrupt chemistry even further, especially when the preparation window is already razor thin. But one presence in Miami provided a stabilizing force that went beyond anything visible in a box score. Breanna Stewart. Fresh off winning the 2026 Unrivaled Championship, where she dropped 32 points in the title game and took home championship game MVP honors, Stewart attended the camp despite not being slated to play in the qualifier. Her resume speaks at a volume most athletes never reach. 3 Olympic titles, 3 WNBA championships, 4 NCAA titles at UConn, multiple EuroLeague titles overseas, and now an unrivaled championship. When asked why she showed up, Stewart said it was about reconnecting with USA basketball and getting her feet wet again. On a roster with so many newcomers adjusting to a new environment, her presence changed the energy in ways that never make the highlight reel. A word between drills, a correction during a sequence. The standard a champion set simply by how seriously she treats every rep. And behind all of it, pulling the strings from the front office, was another legend. Sue Bird. Named the first ever managing director of the U.S. women's national team, Bird played the lead role in selecting this roster. Her fingerprints were all over the construction, the identity, and the long-term vision extending well past Puerto Rico. With Bird building the blueprint and Stewart setting the tone on the floor, the infrastructure around this young core was anything but accidental. And then the footage started leaking. When clips from Miami started circulating online, the reaction was instant, and it was loud. Fans were not watching casually. They were dissecting every frame like detectives searching for evidence. After 8 months of silence, after the Olympic snub, after the injury roller coaster, every single clip of Kaitlinclark became a diagnostic tool. Was she moving fluidly? Was she processing the game at full speed? Was she comfortable stepping into the rhythm of a high-level environment? Or was she cautiously easing her way back in? The early answers were encouraging. More than encouraging. Clark did not look tentative. She was pushing in transition with purpose, pulling up for jumpers with confidence, directing traffic, and organizing possessions like a player who had been running point all season, not someone shaking off the rust of 8 months away from competitive basketball. She was involved in every drill, engaged on both ends. Assertive in a way that told you the mental side had healed right alongside the physical. And when fans saw her sharing the floor with Bueckers, Reese, Plum, and Gray, the excitement shifted from individual curiosity to collective possibility. What could this team actually look like once those pieces started reading off each other, instead of just coexisting on the same court? That is the question that separates a talented roster from a dangerous one. Day one of camp is always about entry. Getting bodies moving, re-establishing timing, reintroducing structure after everyone arrives from different places with different rhythms. But day two is where things change. The intensity rises, the pace jumps. Coaches start pushing players into game-like situations where habits reveal themselves under pressure. More full court work, more 5-on-5 action, more emphasis on communication, transition reads, and defensive rotations that require trust instead of guesswork. Those details matter more than almost anything in a short tournament format. Raw talent can carry a team through easy stretches. But cohesion is what wins the possessions that feel messy, improvised, and uncomfortable. Coaches needed to know who talks on defense, who reacts when the original play breaks down, who stays locked in when the tempo spikes without warning. And with real games just hours away, those final sessions in Miami became less about impressions and more about survival. Could this group absorb enough shared language to function as a real team under genuine pressure? The answer was about to arrive, and it arrived with force. March 11th, Game 1, USA versus Senegal, San Juan, Puerto Rico. And whatever lingering doubts anyone still had about Kaitlinclark evaporated within minutes of her checking in. Clark came off the bench roughly 5 minutes into the first quarter. Her very first touch turned into an assist. Within 3 minutes, she already had 4. She was not easing in. She was not feeling her way through the action. She was orchestrating, commanding, playing like someone who had spent 8 months storing up energy that was now pouring out in every direction. By the time the final buzzer sounded, Clark had logged just 20 minutes. In that window, she finished with 17 points and 12 assists, a double-double in her first competitive game since July 2025, In her very first senior national team appearance, she shot 4 of 5 from three-point range, converted all 5 of her free throw attempts, committed just 2 turnovers. In total, she personally accounted for 38 points through her scoring and playmaking. 38. That is nearly as many as Senegal managed as an entire team in a game that ended 110-46. And the three-point shooting carried a significance that went beyond the stat line. During her injury-plagued sophomore season, Clark shot just 27.9% from deep. That number reflected a player whose legs were not underneath her, whose rhythm was constantly being disrupted by setbacks. On this night, she knocked down multiple threes off the dribble and off the catch with a fluidity that screamed one thing: the legs are back. And when the legs are back, the shot comes back. That is not opinion. That is biomechanics. Clark was not the only one making noise. Paige Bueckers scored 9 points in her own senior debut. Angel Reese contributed energy and physicality. Veterans like Plum, Gray, and Copper provided structure throughout. Team USA's newcomers fueled a dominant wire-to-wire performance that never felt close. After the game, Clark did not hide behind modesty. She said she had been preparing for this for a really long time and was sick of just sitting on the bench cheering everybody else on. The injuries taught her a lot about herself, but nothing compares to actually running around and having fun with a group this talented. You can hear the hunger in every word. This is not a player content with participation. This is a player who wants to take over. And after everything she survived to get here, the fire is not just burning, it is raging. But even with all of that, something else grabbed attention that night. The performance on the court was spectacular. What surrounded it was anything but. As the action moved to the Coliseo in San Juan, a different kind of crisis emerged. One that had nothing to do with basketball and everything to do with how the game was presented to the world. Fans tuning in from around the globe were met with empty seats, subpar camera work, and a broadcast production that fell well below the standard anyone would expect for a game featuring some of the biggest names in women's basketball. The backlash was immediate and fierce. Social media lit up with frustration. The question being asked was painfully simple. If you have kaitlinclark, Paige Bueckers, Angel Reese, Kelsey Plum, and Chelsea Gray on the same court, how do you not make that an event? How do you not give it the treatment and respect it clearly deserves? The disconnect between the level of talent on the floor and the way that talent was being packaged for viewers was impossible to ignore, and people were not having it. Clark herself addressed the issue after the game, and her comments carried weight. She noted that, growing up, it was always difficult to find coverage of the World Cup. She emphasized how important it is to make this more accessible to fans and to the younger generation, whether that means young girls or young boys who want to watch basketball. That observation hits differently when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Women's basketball is growing faster than it ever has. Viewership records are shattering. Arenas are selling out at an unprecedented rate. Unrivaled just hosted what was reportedly the highest attended professional women's basketball game in history, selling out over 21,000 seats in only its second season. The demand is clearly there. The product is undeniably there. What is still catching up in some corners is the infrastructure, the investment, and the basic respect of presenting the game at a level that matches the talent playing it. When fans see a gap between the quality on the court and the quality of the broadcast surrounding it, the frustration is not entitlement. It is an expectation rooted in reality. And when your roster includes the player who single-handedly drove the biggest viewership surge in Wnba history, that expectation is more than reasonable. It is necessary. The games deserve better. The players deserve better. And the fans who showed up to watch absolutely deserve better. But the tournament was far from over, and the real tests were still ahead. The qualifying tournament was still rolling. After the Senegal demolition, Team USA faced Puerto Rico, then Italy, New Zealand, and Spain over the following days. That dominant opener gave the team breathing room, but the coaching staff knew the real examinations had not arrived yet. Spain, in particular, brings a level of discipline, experience, and tactical sophistication in the international game that Senegal simply could not match. As the tournament progressed, rotations would tighten, possessions would matter more, The margin for error would shrink dramatically. That is where the chemistry built in Miami either holds or fractures. Can Clark maintain her rhythm when defenses are tighter and the pace becomes less predictable? Can Bueckers and Reese continue finding their roles in a 5-on-5 system after spending months in unrivaled 3-on-3 format? Those are legitimate questions that only live game action can answer. And the adjustment is real. Going from 3-on-3 spacing to a full 5-on-5 system requires a mental recalibration that does not happen overnight. But zoom out even further, and the stakes multiply. This tournament is a critical evaluation window for Sue Bird and the coaching staff as they begin shaping the roster for the 2026 World Cup in Berlin, where Team USA will be defending 5 consecutive gold medals. Berlin is the next major checkpoint on a much longer road. And after that, the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics. That is the true destination on the horizon. Everything happening right now. Every possession in Puerto Rico, every defensive rotation, every moment of trust being built between teammates is part of an arc that stretches years into the future. For Clark specifically, this week represents the very beginning of the journey she has been building toward since Paris closed its doors without her. She has openly stated her goals: the World Cup roster next fall, then Los Angeles in 2028. And if her debut against Senegal is any indication, the learning curve might be dramatically shorter than anyone predicted. Clark said the international game tossed her into the fire, and she thrived. 17 points, 12 assists, 20 minutes. In her first senior game after 8 months away. If that is what rust looks like, then the rest of the world should be genuinely concerned about what happens when the engine is fully warmed up. Because the warm-up already looked like a statement, and the real games have only just begun. There is something poetic about how this story has unfolded. 2 years ago, Kaitlinclark was the most talked about basketball player on the planet, who was told she was not ready for the biggest stage. A year ago, she was sitting on the sideline watching teammates play while her body refused to cooperate. And now, in March 2026, she is wearing a Team USA jersey for the first time in senior competition, dropping a double-double in 20 minutes and looking every bit like someone capable of changing the direction of an entire program. This is not just a comeback story. This is the opening chapter of what could be the most important era in Team USA women's basketball in a generation. Clark, Bueckers, Reese, and Wnba, alongside veterans like Plum, Copper, Gray, and Young. Stewart mentoring from the sideline. Sue Bird architecting from the front office. That is a foundation built to dominate for a decade. But talent alone does not build dynasties. Cohesion does. Trust does. And right now, that process has only just begun. The camp is over. The talking is over. The setup is over. What comes next reveals everything. And if what we just witnessed is any indication, the rest of the basketball world should be paying very close attention. Stay locked in with my channel, Simply Explained, your home for the truth behind the WNBA headlines.